here is today's agenda. Now, each of these items could very well be its own webinar, but what I want to do is help you understand how all of these pieces really need to work together, how you can take a really holistic approach to your sales and marketing strategies and processes in order to be more successful with Salesforce and Pardot. I do want to mention I'm going to be putting things in Sales Cloud today. So if you're not using Sales Cloud as the CRM, hopefully you'll be able to take away some of the process things, but definitely you may want to also consider about migrating to Sales Cloud. So if you're using another CRM that may not be integrated to Pardot or may not be working so well as far as the integration goes, it's getting easier and easier and faster to migrate to Sales Cloud. So I always like to start these things out by explaining why we're here, what piqued your interest in signing up for today's session. And it's really about changing buyer behaviors and the vast changes in the way that marketing and sales teams work and the way that we're re-engineering our processes. We're thinking about ways that we can delight the customer with great content, with great service, getting feedback and constantly improving our products and services. And the bottom line is we want to make it easy for our customers to do business with us. And we've seen this massive shift over the last few years. And now we really have to be in that position where we have to react to that. Now, a lot of us have seen this stat in one place or another. Pardot uses this stat a lot during their sales process when they're talking about the value of Pardot. I would say 50% might be a little conservative for some businesses. But we know that today's buyer is researching us online. They're talking to people in their network. They're watching videos, downloading content, and they're trying to do this in relative obscurity until they have their decision made. Now, certainly if you're in an industry with very complex products or very technical products, this may look a little bit different. They may reach out a little bit sooner. But the main thing that you want to remember is that the nature of how we market has also changed how we sell. And the dividing line between those two functions or those two departments is getting much thinner. For example, people going onto your website, they may be looking for more information. They may even submit a contact form or a request for information form, but they still really aren't to that point yet where they really want to talk to sales. They're just trying to get a little bit more information maybe on pricing or packages, or answer very specific questions about the product. So you want to be thinking about ways in marketing that you can get people onto your radar with different offers and nurture them to a point where they are ready to talk to sales. This next slide here, I think, illustrates the shift that we've seen in buyer behavior. So where it used to be where we could, as a business, define the sales process that we want our customer to follow, and they basically had to follow that process, however uncomfortable that process may have been or undelightful that process may have been. But now we see the customer is driving the business processes, and they're really in the driver's seat here. We really have to cater to them, and that can be challenging, certainly, if you've got a larger organization that you're working in or an older organization with very set in stone processes. That process change can be difficult. Now, I want to point out a key thing on this slide. Item number 2 under the CRM serves as a system of record, the central hub of all customer data. Salesforce Sales Cloud CRM should be your central data hub for all of your customer data. In a perfect world, all of your customer systems and processes would live in Salesforce or integrated with Salesforce in some sort of way that marketing and sales can get at that data. I work with a lot of technology companies, and they're often in a position where they have to try to grow and scale quickly, and they're really adopting this idea of using Salesforce to run their entire business. And that is really powerful because your sales and marketing teams have a 360-degree view of your customer. So things like your marketing, your sales, your pricing systems, your accounting systems, your customer service systems, those are all integrated with Salesforce Sales Cloud as your central hub. That gives you a lot of data and a lot of insights to understand when a new opportunity may exist, or cross-selling, upselling, when a renewal is coming due. So sales and marketing today is very cyclical. It doesn't really follow a linear process. So we need a technology system and processes in place where we can identify where each and every person is in our database and where they are at in our journey with our business. And that brings us to the concept of lifecycle marketing. Salesforce has talked a lot, especially in the last year. There was a lot of discussion on this at Dreamforce about lifecycle marketing, and there's a good reason for that. Of course, there's more reason to invest in the Salesforce platform because you can deliver an awesome experience with various products in the Salesforce ecosystem. They're all integrated, give you that 360-degree view. But Salesforce also sees and believes in this methodology, and they know that their technology has to support the changing ways that companies are approaching marketing, they're approaching sales, they're restructuring teams, they are restructuring responsibilities, thinking outside the box, thinking of creative ways to reach their customers to really create a unique experience, which creates a competitive advantage. So Salesforce really understands that their technology has to support changing processes and continuous improvement in those processes and making sure that that's easy to do. So marketing and sales, again, is very cyclical. Our job never ends. And these two teams really need to work hand in hand in order to reach common goals. So I often hear from sales and marketing teams that they are very aligned. So they may have common goals such as leads that they need to generate in a given period of time or sales growth. But when we drill deep down, we find that there's some misalignment in the process. So sales and marketing alignment is about complete alignment in the process, and that can be difficult depending on the organization. So we need to approach sales and marketing alignment more cohesively and understand here that the line is more blurred on those two functions. And I encourage people not to think of sales and marketing as two completely separate and unique departments. You really have to work together in order to create an experience that wows your buyer. So in marketing, what can I do? So if I'm in marketing, what can I do to support the changing ways that buyers are engaging with us? And I would point out here on on the second bullet point on this slide here, infiltrate your sales process and challenge the status quo. So in marketing, you're really kind of in charge of that customer experience. And if you follow your leads all the way through the process, from that first touch with your sales rep, to an opportunity, to a quoting, to maybe a proposal presentation, follow that process through the entire way. See where leads are dropping off. And often this can really give us some good insights as far as how do we need to change things in marketing to better reach these folks. So maybe we need to nurture our quotes and proposals, use that opportunities object and opportunity stages to develop nurturing programs. I would also encourage you to look at Trailhead and really take the time to understand Salesforce fundamentals, how the different objects work, how the standard process works, the different customizations that you can do. The deeper that you get into Salesforce, the better you will be in marketing because you can think of creative ways to automate things and reach your customers in new ways. Well, what if I'm in sales? What can I do to support changing buyer behaviors? A key thing is to provide that constant feedback loop to marketing over what's resonating, what prospects are asking about, what hesitations they have, what problems they're experiencing that could warrant additional education and resources. And then you also want to do your due diligence and keeping the database clean. This is super important. If we don't have a clean database, if we have old dead leads, if we have junk leads, records with incomplete information, that absolutely jeopardizes automation that we want to do in Pardot. It jeopardizes things like dynamic content in Pardot that are looking on specific data fields and values in order to display personalized content. It also impacts the way that we want to segment our lists. So list segmentation and creating more personalized messaging for folks is super important, but we can't do that in marketing if we don't have the data. And oftentimes your sales reps are the ones day in and day out working with their prospects and updating that database. Again, if you have not checked out Trailhead, I would definitely highly encourage it. It's a really great way to learn Salesforce, all the way from the very, very basic stuff up to very advanced things. There's not really any trails for Pardot yet, but there are several trails for Marketing Cloud, and learning the methodology of Marketing Cloud will also help you in understanding what Pardot can do. So let's talk about standard Salesforce sales process and the foundation that you want to build on when you're considering customization or additional apps. There is a standard process. So Salesforce does have a seemingly secret process map, and that link is also going to go out with the slide deck. Unfortunately, it's just a little bit too large for the presentation, so I kind of tried to replicate and simplify that process. In a perfect world, you would funnel every single new person in your database first through Pardot in a form on your website. That doesn't always happen, but when it does, of course, we get all that great tracking and data collection that we like to get up front. Now, Pardot is designed to create a new lead if nobody exists with the same email address. If you're not using leads, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Your sales reps should also be starting or picking up on their process in the leads object. And we want them to do their due diligence with the data. Again, that data governance comes into play. We want to enrich that data either through data.com or even doing a simple LinkedIn search. We want to validate that data. We want to clean up any errors in spelling or location or any of the required fields that we need. The process of working leads then, it does vary by organization, but what you want to get to a point is where that lead is either qualified or rejected. And you need to get an understanding if that prospect has a budget, a need, a timeline for your product or service. And once a dollar amount becomes known, and this could be after a few conversations or a demo or a consultation, once you understand the general value of that opportunity, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you should have a ballpark range. Then you can consider that lead to be sales qualified. And that's when you want to convert them to a contact in the system. And I'm going to show you that conversion process in a minute as well. And you also, at the same time of conversion, want to create an opportunity and give that opportunity a value. That's super important for marketing. If we don't have that, we don't know the return on our marketing investment. And again, our opportunities may go through several stages that are unique to our organization. So things like proposals, negotiation, but finally we're going to get to this point of hopefully closed won status. But of course, when we're thinking about lifecycle marketing and sales, our work doesn't stop there. We need to continue to support and engage these folks, make sure our sales reps and marketing reps have access to the data that could help alert them when a new opportunity exists. So I'm going to go back to the leads object because I often get a lot of questions on this. So the difference between leads and contacts, when you should be using leads, if you're not using leads yet, what can you do? So everything should start in the lead object. If this is not happening in your org, you're missing out on a lot of default reports. And it also starts to get tricky when you want to integrate to other apps like Pardot or lead distribution engine, or there's some advanced AppExchange apps related to campaigns. And they all kind of are based on the standard Salesforce sales process, which starts in the lead object. Pardot by default will create a new lead, and the process of qualifying leads becomes much more defined when you're able to take advantage of the awesome new Kanban tool in the Lightning interface. If you're not using the new Lightning user interface, definitely now is the time to start thinking about switching to that and converting to that. There's a couple of really handy tools when it comes to guided selling and guided opportunity stages that make it a lot easier for your sales team to stay on track, and also for your marketing team to understand where things are at in the process and how they can improve things and automate things from Pardot. So the way the standard Salesforce is designed to work is that you work the lead through the qualification process, again, until they have become sales qualified, which rule of thumb, when a dollar amount becomes known. That's when we convert to an opportunity. Now, when your lead becomes SQL, your sales rep is going to hit the magic convert button on the lead record and update or create a new account and create an opportunity at the same time. This is really helpful because you can get a nice default out-of-the-box report of your converted leads by the month. So if you want to understand how many leads are becoming SQL in a given month, that's pretty easy to do when you're using the standard lead conversion process. Another standard field in the lead object where I get a lot of questions is the lead source. That's another one that's really important for marketing. Obviously we need to know where our customers are coming from. A lead source is designed to tell us just that. Where did this lead find us at the very beginning of their journey? Not the second touch, third touch, fourth touch. It's where did we find them, or where did they find us? And you want to keep that lead source, you want to keep those values pretty high level, but then use the campaigns object to get more granular with a specific marketing activity that got that person to engage with us or re-engage with us. Another area I want to highlight is the standard processes or standard options that we have for lead assignment. Lead assignment is a key area of overlap between Pardot and Salesforce. And I think it's really important because it helps improve our response times. And in some cases, it helps move a deal along faster if we have somebody who is following up on a lead who is going to really understand that lead's problem or challenge. So maybe they have a specific area of expertise in that product interest area, for example. So this is an area where we really kind of need to work together. And you've got a few options. You can assign leads directly from Pardot. I generally only recommend that when you've got a very simple sales process, a small team, so maybe only 1 or 2 reps. That's a little bit easier to do, to set up and configure than the Salesforce lead assignment rules. Just if you have that 1 or 2 rep sales team. If you have any more than that, we definitely want to use the Salesforce lead assignment rules to automate the process. And then on our Pardot forms, so if we're gathering leads in a sort of inbound sense, we want in our completion action to say, okay, Pardot, let's just follow those rules. We have this rule set up in Salesforce. We have a centralized place where we're managing that process. Pardot, just follow that. There's also another tool called lead queues, which I often use as a holding queue for people who are in maybe an open or nurture lead status. So I like to get all of my data into Salesforce, but I don't want to assign a lead to sales until they are marketing qualified. So I like to nurture them before we have the sales team follow up. And a lead queue is a really good way to keep that person in a holding place while being able to report on all of the leads that we have generated in a given month or all of the activity that's going on with our leads. One more thing on marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads. So when we're talking about standard Salesforce and Pardot, Pardot considers a marketing qualified lead as a lead that has been assigned and synced to Salesforce. So if you're looking at the Pardot Lifecycle marketing report, it's a really nice report that's in your reports tool on Pardot. There's not a way to customize what you consider marketing qualified, but just know that that's what they consider. So if you're pushing leads right away to Salesforce, it's going to show that as a marketing qualified lead conversion point. And SQL is represented as the point of conversion between lead and contact. So again, once a dollar amount becomes known and opportunity is created, that is what we are considering as SQL. Now, if you've got a situation where you're marketing to a lot of existing customers, so they're no longer in the lead object, maybe they're in the contacts object, we're not going to be using the MQL and SQL in the traditional sense. We're going to be using probably a combination of account type, customer, and opportunities reports to report on new business with existing customers or new activities with existing customers. You can also use the campaigns object to show new activity with existing contacts. And that campaigns report, you can combine leads and contacts into one report if you want to. Now I'm going to show you a few best practices and examples of how you might customize Salesforce, especially when you're considering automation from Pardot. I want to stress that you want to be working closely with the sales team to jointly develop a strategy for certain areas where marketing should have oversight. And customizing your process starts with considering your buyer persona. What do they want their experience to look like? We can't just set a process as a business and expect people to follow that. And if we think back to the buyer stages, the sales process starts with the awareness stage. And that's where marketing comes in, of course. We need to talk to sales and understand what questions people are asking during the sales process that we can address right up front. Then we need to build that content and decide how to distribute that. If you're doing inbound marketing for inbound leads, we can distribute content with a nurturing program. If you're doing a lot of outbound prospecting, I love to use the one-to-one email templates in Pardot. Those work really well for making sure your sales team stay on track with marketing approved content, and also giving marketing a feedback loop into what people are engaging with in an outbound prospect process. One point that you want to remember is that you cannot automate a process that is not defined and agreed on. Sometimes I hear people say that they have sort of a vague or understood sales process where reps generally understand what they need to do, but it's not in writing. There's not a clearly defined process in Salesforce that's really guiding them. So switching to Lightning experience and using that Kanban view, that will certainly help define the process. Now, I will say that high performance organizations, I think Salesforce is a great example. They have a really, really well defined sales process, and that helps in so many ways. It helps us understand and get more accurate forecasting, and it helps with onboarding new reps and making sure that they're following the desired sequence, and a sequence that you kind of hopefully signed off on in marketing as being the best process at a given time. It also helps improve productivity, and it helps you automate marketing content. So definitely make sure that you have a process in writing and that everybody signs off on it. These are the areas where there's a lot of overlap between Pardot and Salesforce, where you may want to do things that are in Sales Cloud that are going to impact what you want to do in marketing in Pardot. Lead source is a good example. This can be automatically captured in Pardot. So if somebody came in from AdWords or social media, or they came from a referring link, maybe you use a custom redirect from a guest blog and that person got into your website and submitted a form, we can automate the lead source from Pardot. So again, ideal scenario is everybody new to your database is coming through Pardot. That's one of the reasons we can capture that lead source. Doesn't always happen that way, but that's a key area where we can automate that and make it easier for our sales reps. So they're not guessing where did this lead come from. It's a little bit more accurate for our marketing reports and to show our marketing contribution. Lead status is another key area where people tend to have questions. Again, with Lightning, we can use the Kanban to help keep our sales team on track. This is an example of what we use at Newsome as far as our lead statuses, and it kind of follows a process. So this is a guided selling feature where everybody starts in an open status. They may move on to nurture, marketing qualified lead, sales accepted lead, consultation. You may reject them if they're not interested, or maybe they're not the right contact, and then finally to a converted stage. What's great about Pardot is that you can help update these field values using various features. So the example at the top here is a completion action in a form. So this is a form that's tied to our consultation. If somebody fills out a consultation request, we're going to automatically assume that they're marketing qualified. They are actively looking for help in whatever challenge they may be experiencing. So we're going to go ahead and consider them marketing qualified and update that lead status. The bottom example is an automation rule where we're saying once a prospect score has reached 100 and they are in the lead status of open or nurture, we're going to update that status to MQL and notify the assigned sales rep. That works well when you've got a lot of different offers or different options for people to engage with you and track that content, and they're constantly aggregating that score. So lead assignment is another area where you should have a lot of oversight in marketing. We want to automate this and customize this according to what is going to help us reach a sales goal. One of the problems I often see is that sales reps are following up too soon. And that's why lead queues can be really helpful because you can send the data, you can send your inbound lead to Salesforce so you can report on it, but you're kind of hoarding that person until they have reached a point of MQL status, until they've shown more engagement, and it might be worth a warm touch to kind of follow up with that lead. We may also want to consider re-engineering our lead assignment process so that reps with expertise in certain areas are assigned leads that match that. The first connection with a lead can really make or break a deal. And if your rep doesn't really show that they understand that prospect and their problems and challenges, that could very well kill the deal. So if we want to employ a strategy like that, a lot of times I see people still using geography as a lead assignment. That's really their criteria. That's fine. But think about other ways you may be able to do that make a little bit more sense for a specific skill set of a rep. And I would caution you that if you do want to employ that strategy, which I definitely recommend thinking about that, you want to make sure that you're asking pertinent information on your forms so that you can indeed route those folks automatically. So if you have a rep, if you have your assignment rule set up where reps with certain product expertise are following up with certain leads, then you want to make sure that you're asking product interest on your forms. Now, there is a lot of ways that we can use automation between Pardot and Salesforce. These are a few examples. The second example here, I think, is really nice for people who have contacts who regularly have new opportunities. So this could be a situation where maybe you have a request for quote form on your website. You can actually use Process Builder to automate the creation of an opportunity for people who have already been through the lead qualification process. They are already maybe existing customers, so they're in that contact object. And we can use Salesforce Process Builder, which if you're not familiar with Process Builder, it's kind of similar to Engagement Studio or how you might build a rule in the automation rules in Pardot, but you can do much, much more with it. It's a much more robust tool. So definitely check out Trailhead again if you want to learn more about Process Builder. Another thing that I think is really key on this slide is recipient lists and suppression lists and automating the membership of those lists. So things like lead status, opportunity stage, even updating a custom field like persona could trigger a prospect to be added to a dynamic list in Pardot. And this is how we start to automate our lifecycle marketing programs. Automating recipient lists and automating suppression lists is huge when you want to think about automating marketing programs in Pardot. And that's where we really need our sales team to come in and be on board with good data governance and making sure that they're following the designed process, because we cannot automate recipient lists and suppression lists if they aren't adhering to that. For example, I often use the opportunity stage closed one to get people onto a suppression list and kick them out of a program that is nurturing them. So of course, if somebody performs the desired action in the nurturing sequence and they go and purchase a product or they request a quote, we don't want them to continue getting more nurturing messages. We need a way to kick them out of that program. And using the opportunity field opportunity stage and the closed one status, that can really help you in automating those types of programs. I also want to point out common sync errors and issues. noticing situations where your leads from Pardot are not syncing to Salesforce, you can check out the Salesforce connector in your administrative setup and go to the sync errors, and it will give you some details on why those are occurring. Oftentimes, sync errors kind of go back to not having joint oversight over both tools. So you may have a Salesforce administrator doing things in Salesforce to update Salesforce, but then not updating the Pardot system. So we want to make sure if we're making any changes to especially those key objects, so your leads, contacts, accounts, opportunities, that we're working together to understand A, why we need to make that change, B, do we really need to make that change, C, how do we need to update another system that is integrated to that in order to make sure that we keep our data fluid. So some of the common errors I see, the field types don't match between Pardot and Salesforce. Maybe you have a required field in Salesforce, but you're not capturing that data in a Pardot form, and that's triggering an error. You could also have a situation where you missed the assignment part of the completion action or the automation rule or engagement studio, so that prospect is not assigned, and therefore they won't trigger to Salesforce. I also see a lot of problems. It's an easy fix, but if your opportunities are not syncing to Pardot, it may be because your sales reps are not including a contact role with that opportunity. So until we tell Pardot who an opportunity is associated with, that opportunity is basically just floating around, and Pardot doesn't know who is attached to that opportunity. So make sure your sales reps are using the contact roles when they create an opportunity. I'm going to move on to sales enablement. Sales enablement is about helping your sales team prioritize their day. So helping them understand where their best opportunities are. And you can do that through lead scoring and grading. There's a lot of content in the knowledge base on lead scoring and grading, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But one thing I commonly see is that, especially if you've had Pardot for a long time, you may get into a situation where you've got scoring inflation, where you've got a really big imbalance between scoring. So definitely after a period of time, look at the default scoring rules and see how we need to customize those to better understand our engagement of our prospects in our unique use case. So you can use automation rules to reset scores to certain values or even to a score of 0 after certain behaviors are recorded. We want to try to keep people to no more than 100 points because your sales rep starts to ask, well, what does this score mean? This person has a score of 800, this person has a score of 50. They might be the same level of hotness, but I really don't understand. So try to create a system where your leads are not really going over that 100-point threshold. You can also automate tasks. Your sales reps are going to inevitably, again, ask you, what should I do with this information? When do I need to reach out? I'm getting these notifications. I'm getting this daily prospect report. So it's good to work with them to understand when do they want you to create a task automatically. So for example, page actions in Pardot. You can use those to create a task if your sales team wants to be notified of a prospect they're working with. Use the pricing page, for example. You can also use one-to-one email templates. I love those. They work really well. They have pretty high engagement rates. They're a great way to keep your sales team on message, help them to create emails really quickly. And again, that's marketing approved content, and we're able to report on that if those are Pardot tracked. List views are also really helpful. So if you're exporting reports from Pardot or linking to lists or reports in Pardot to your sales team, a better way to do it might actually be to create a list view for them, which you can do in most of the objects, but particularly leads and contacts. You can filter these to show various things. I've got down the example here as anyone with a Pardot score of 50 and over. So this is a good way for your sales team to just have a handy list of people who are showing activity. They can kind of see where people are at. They can kind of make a judgment call. When might I need to follow up with this person? This person seems to really be showing a lot of engagement this week. Maybe I should reach out to them with a phone call. So definitely check out list views. They're really easy to create. Just go to the setup in Salesforce. Actually, no, you can just go to the leads object itself and hit the edit view and make that globally available to your sales reps. There's also some advanced options in terms of sales enablement in the AppExchange. One of the apps that we work closely is Funnelwise. This gives a lot more insight into how your process is working, where your leads might be dropping off, how to improve your win rate, your velocity. So there's some really interesting things out there. I would just encourage you to, we need to look at the fundamentals, make sure you have a strong foundation before we start looking at other apps that can give you really advanced features and really advanced insights that can take your sales and marketing to the next level. All right, so we just got a few minutes left. We're gonna wrap up with our final point here, which is on marketing reports. So I know the Pardot team has done a lot of webinars on campaigns. There's a lot of great content out there on campaigns. Salesforce also has an implementation guide, so you might check that out related to Salesforce campaigns. Marketing reports are beneficial in so many ways. One of them is being able to understand where to allocate our budget, what's working, what's not. And another way, we need to be able to show our boss all the great ways that we are contributing to the bottom line with our marketing influenced engagement and our marketing influence assets. We're going to mostly talk about reports in terms of campaigns, but you can also create custom reports with other objects. I think the trick is really reverse engineering your reports to understand what data you might need or what processes you might need to implement to get the reporting that you really need. Again, data quality and data governance is super important, as is user adoption. Opportunities are often an area of confusion. So make sure your sales reps are using opportunities the right way, because that will absolutely impact your campaigns. So we want to make sure that our sales reps are inputting the dollar value of campaigns, because there's a really great tool that is out of the box, default, ready to go in campaigns that shows all of the opportunities related to a specific marketing asset or campaign that we've deployed. So it's a really great tool, and it's something that you want to kind of police and make sure that your sales reps are doing things the right way. You also want to think really strategically about your campaigns and set those up in a holistic fashion. So try not to create campaigns ad hoc. I mean, you'll definitely have cases where something comes up, a new trade show comes up, or you know, a new sponsorship opportunity comes up, and you can kind of create those campaigns on the fly. But definitely create a strategy for the year with what your campaigns are going to look like. Because if you don't do that, it's going to be an organizational nightmare, and it's going to be really difficult to report on. You also want to make sure that in most cases, I would recommend that marketing own those campaigns. So you don't want your sales reps in charge of the campaigns, because really you and marketing are the ones that are responsible for the marketing spend, the marketing budget, marketing performance and ROI. So make sure you and marketing own those campaigns, and your sales team isn't going out and creating campaigns on a whim. Finally, you want to automate, automate, automate. So everything you do in Pardot, you need to think about a corresponding Salesforce campaign. We need to be able to report on the opportunities that you generated from that marketing activity and the value of those opportunities, because there's a lot of different ways that you can automate the memberships. This is an example of the engagement studio. We can add people to the engagement studio as part of our logic. We can also add people through a completion action or an automation rule. Just remember, again, everything you do in Pardot, you need to make sure that you're adding it to a campaign. I also get a lot of questions as far as campaigns organization, campaigns hierarchy. You can actually do up to 5 tiers of parent and child campaigns in the campaigns object. We recommend trying to keep it to 3 tiers just to kind of keep it simple. Just remember that, again, you want to think about these campaigns strategically. There's really not any right or wrong way. So you see the example on the left, we have a parent campaign for 2017. Then we've got child campaigns for different channels. So events, AdWords, white papers. And then we've got specific activities, so specific events that we're going to, specific white papers. The example on the right is more where we've got the campaign at the parent level is online marketing, and then we've got downloads as a channel, and then very specific downloads underneath that. So there's really not a right or way to do it. You just want to think strategically about how that's organized. And then also think about your dashboard and your reports. So again, go to Trailhead if you're not familiar with creating reports in Salesforce. Really learn the ins and outs. There's all kinds of fun things to do. You can slice and dice these reports any way you want. You can create all kinds of different charts. You can measure things by the day, the week, the month, the year, whatever you want to do. It just takes a little bit of getting used to how the reporting tool works, and then understanding maybe what changes you need to make to Salesforce or Pardot to support the reports that you want to do. All right, so we have covered a lot in today's call. I want to kind of wrap this up with some key takeaways before we get to questions. Number one, think big picture when it comes to Salesforce and its capabilities. Think about that life cycle and the other things that you could do with integrated data. So what I showed you here today was really foundational. It was really the standard Salesforce sales process. But once you get that down, you can really do a lot more in terms of integration to other tools and other apps. So it really takes that foundation using Sales Cloud the right way in order to do that. Also, think about what you need in marketing to help sales in an automated way. So creating that sales enablement strategy, using lead scoring, creating list views for your sales team, creating one-to-one email templates, that will help your sales team do more with less effort in a way that's automated and measurable. And then finally, again, take ownership of the data points that you need to be able to that your sales team needs to complete and make sure are accurate, so you can generate awesome marketing reports and show that marketing ROI, show your marketing contribution. So thank you for joining us. I know we've got a little bit of time here for Q&A. Kylie, are there some questions that have come up that I can help address?
Yeah, we do. Thanks so much. So we'll be taking questions now. We've had some folks chatting in throughout the session. So if you haven't had a chance to chat yours in yet, definitely go ahead and do that. We'll start with one of our questions from Matthew. He said, it seems like technology is changing so fast. How does Agile affect marketing and sales organizations in both their initial implementation and ongoing to support buyer behavior and sales support? What is your experience in using Agile in marketing and sales? Do you recommend weekly meetings to help keep this alignment or more often? So I think kind of at the core, what's kind of your recommendation for keeping marketing and sales closely aligned?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a long question. You know, definitely weekly touch points with sales and marketing are warranted. Agile is kind of a big buzzword, and he's right. This changes so fast and so frequently, and that's really the power of Salesforce and Pardot. You can make these changes pretty quickly. It's just a matter of understanding what changes you need to make. So when you get together in your weekly calls, get to an understanding of what is working, what is not. How could we make a quick fix to something that might work wonders as far as reaching our goals? So you know, be willing to change, be ready to change. Having that culture of continuous improvement is really huge when you think about Agile marketing.
Awesome, thanks. We have another question from Doug. He asked, can you give examples of what would be in the lead source pick list? I think you mentioned to kind of keep it high level and not super specific. So examples there, maybe that would be good lead source values.
That is a great question, and a question we answer all the time. So again, you want to think about, where was this lead sourced? This could be a Google AdWords, could be a lead source value. It could be purchase list. Now, I do want to caution, you cannot email those people in a mass sense from Pardot. You can call them, so we can have that as an option. It might be organic search. So if we're using the Pardot tracking to be able to understand if that person is performing a natural search. We can automate that from Pardot. It might also be social media. Again, Pardot can track that. If you're using the custom redirects in Pardot, that's a great way. So if you're doing guest blogs or guest webinars or anything else on other sites where you want to track where that person has come from and assign that to a lead source, you could do something like referring link. You could also do a trade show, might be another example. And then again, you use the campaigns to get more granular as to what specific link that they viewed, or specific blog, or specific trade show.
Great. We have another question about your lead status values. Is that only in Salesforce, or is that in Pardot as well? Is that synced between the two systems?
You do have to map the lead status values. So your lead status is going to be managed in Salesforce, but that does sync over to Pardot. You just want to make sure that those values are all mapped. And if you make any changes in Salesforce, if your admin makes changes to the lead status values, that those are also updated in the corresponding fields in Pardot.
Awesome, great. So we have another question. We've had a lot of questions around Lightning, because I know that a lot of your screenshots are in Lightning. So just kind of overall, are the features that you talked about today, are those also available in Classic, or are there specific things that are specific to the Lightning interface that you reviewed today?
Pretty much everything is available in Classic except for the Kanban functionality. So I really like that for the guided selling and the leads object. And also it works the same. I didn't show an example, but it works the same way on the opportunities, where it shows your opportunity stages, and it kind of guides everybody through the process. I mean, it gives people an easier window to where that specific person is at. But all the other functionality, so things like list views, campaigns, all of that can be managed in Classic.
Wonderful. Great. Let me just pull up our questions again. And you kind of spoke to this in terms of the pick list values, but anything else you would use to explain why the lead source should be more high level as opposed to granular or campaign specific?
So we often see people who are using lead source and they've got a huge long list of values that could correspond to those lead sources. And the problem is it's just difficult to report on because those lead sources are constantly changing. So if you're constantly adding values to the pick list for specific things that you're, a specific trade show that you're going to, for example, it just makes it difficult to report on consistently. So that's why we try to keep people at a high level list of things that they're always doing. And then again, using that campaigns to assign people to a more granular activity.
Awesome. Great. Just looking for any other questions that have come through. Just looking.
Going back to Lightning, so Lightning is kind of at a point now where a lot of people can start thinking about migrating to that. More functionality is coming out. They had a lot of functionality that was added with the Spring 17 release, I think it was. So a lot of people are thinking about moving to Lightning. I think it's a better experience for your sales reps. The interface itself is just a lot more intuitive. The Kanban is certainly nice. On the opportunities, I didn't show this, but on the opportunity stages, you can also move tiles around to where specific people are in the process. You can also use tiles to understand, give me all my people who are in the lead status nurture, and it gives you tiles. So Lightning, it has come a long way since it rolled out about 18 months ago now, and definitely start thinking about that if you're not already.
We have one more question. We have one about the Pardot Lifecycle report in relation to Salesforce. They haven't really found out a way to interpret that yet. So is that a report you use, the Lifecycle report in Pardot, and how does that kind of relate to Salesforce?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky to try to replicate in Salesforce. The out-of-the-box report, the Lifecycle report in Pardot, is really nice. We do use that internally to understand kind of at a high level where our people are at. It's nice in that it captures your website information, so your website visitors, and kind of puts it into a nice funnel as to far as how many people have visited your website, how many people have converted, how many of those people have converted to SQL, how many of those have become closed won. So it's a little bit, again, tricky to replicate in Salesforce, but there's a lot of different reports that you can use in a dashboard format that can help you understand a lot of very specific activities that you may be trying to measure.
Great. And one person asked a question just to confirm. The lead status, MQL, for example, is a custom field that you created in Salesforce and mapped to Pardot. Where did you add that in Salesforce?
Yes, lead status. I believe there is a default field for lead status, but you want to be able to customize those values. So I do believe that is a custom field. So you set that up in Salesforce in the setup on the lead object, and then you insert the values that you want. Once you have that done, you can go ahead and map that in the prospect field in Pardot. So add that as a custom field. And once you sync it to Salesforce, it should automatically pop up with those values and you'll be good to go.
Right, we have time for, I think, one more question. What are the most useful Pardot reports to present to your executives?
So the Pardot reporting tool is fairly limited, and there is a reason for that. Your reporting engine, especially if you're connected to Sales Cloud, should really be in Sales Cloud. So that's where I like to see people do the bulk of their reporting, just in one place. That's your hub of all of your information. So again, you can slice and dice those reports in all kinds of different ways. You can create different types of charts to your liking, customize them however you want in Sales Cloud. The Pardot reports are fairly limited, but they show you a really nice, easy view of specifically of email activity. So where your email deliverability rate is, where your spam rate is, where your open rate is. Generally, you can use campaigns to try to get that data into Salesforce, but depending on your volume of emails, that may be a little bit more work than it's worth. So definitely for now, it's really good to download those reports in Pardot to show what's happening, particularly with your emails. Also landing pages, if you have landing pages in Pardot using your subdomain, that's a good way to understand what is my conversion ratio. So the percentage of people who go to my landing page versus
That does it for our questions. And just a quick note for anyone who is on the line, if you have questions that come up later, definitely share those on the success community, maybe on the thread where we post this recording and deck. That's a great place to kind of coordinate or connect with folks that were also on this line that might have feedback for you. Great.
Well, thanks, Kylie, for having me, and thanks again, everybody, for joining us on this Friday. It was exciting to get to share this with you.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. And we'll post this in the success community. If you're not a member, you can get there by going to www.pardot.com/success. Or if you're in the success community, search for Pardot B2B Marketing Automation Group and join that. That's where you'll find the deck and a few actually related resources that Stephanie mentioned earlier, a guide for the marketing trailblazer, a free Salesforce assessment link, and a Salesforce started standard process map. So again, thanks so much, Stephanie, and thanks everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.